So this one confuses people a lot. And really what you should learn is that when you're multiplying, all of these are multiplied together, you can rearrange them and put things together. Like people mistakenly believe that when things are multiplied like this, that you can't move the 3 away from the y, that it's like married together. Totally not true. This 2 can move to the front and be a 2 times right there. And this y here can move into this spot, and the y can be here instead of there. And now look, I've grouped everything together. That's grouped together, 6 y squared m to the 4th. Tons of people didn't know that. I think a lot of you know that now, because a lot of you are getting your good scores on your basics. So we're going to cover the basics for your next test, and a couple more basics that are in the basic 20. And then your job for today is to master the basic 20 for the last time under pressure, not at home. It has to be done here, and it has to be like, how many do you know out of 20? Because at conferences, for many of you, I'll be able to say, well, they used to only know 4 out of 20, but now they know 19 out of 20. And if you haven't been making progress on that, that's going to come out of conferences. So I need to know those scores today. So if you do not finish it today, despite having the 20 minutes, I will have to give you a 0 for it, and we will explain to your parents that you were so scared that you didn't even want to finish it. And I'll be able to go in and look and see how many you actually knew. You know, if you stop halfway through, I guess that you only knew like 5 things, and we'll consider your score that. Okay, so don't think that not finishing it will get you out of it. No, I'll just grade what you did do, and it'll be pretty bad. So I'd encourage you to try to finish it and hit submit when I tell you to. All right, so this is probably one of the top ones that's missed, and I think it's because people made this more complicated at the elementary school than they had to. The denominator here is just 21. And do you know how I got that? Yes?
By multiplying each side by 7 and 3.
Yeah. They both need to be 21sts. And they used to make you go through this complicated process of figuring out what the denominator should be by doing some kind of a least common multiple thing or whatever. But just multiply them. That's all you got to do. 7 times 3 is 21. And then you got to think back to, what did I just do to this? Oh, I times it by 3. So you have to times this by 3. And times this by 7, times that by 7. That tells you what's on top. See how 9 goes here? 7 goes there. When it's add, 9 plus 7 gives you, let's see, 16. And then 16 over 21 is your answer. Do you get how I got that? Now, the reason that you care about this, question?
How'd you get the 9? Oh, wait, never mind.
We're timesing. Yep. Yeah. So the reason that this is so important is that we have to be able to do this except with variables in it, which is going to be more complicated. So you've got to understand it with simple numbers first. Then when we get to this part of the unit later, where we got to get common denominators that are like x plus 7, how are you going to do a common denominator for x plus 7 if you don't know how to do it with simple numbers? That's why I'm trying to help you get this basic down for later when we have to build on it. All right. Now there's a few other things that are super critical. One is finding slope. I hope this is like the back of your hand now. 2 comma 3, 9 comma 10. Would you figure out the slope between those two? And a new way that some of you have never heard before is start with the last number. And I think it's a great way to go. It tells you what's on top of the fraction. It tells you what to start with. Once you're starting, you just kind of finish the little pattern. 10. And I think many of you know, to find the slope, you're just going to have to subtract. All right. So 10 minus the 3 is 7 over 9 minus the 2. 7 over 7, and therefore 1. Is that fairly easy? All right, now one of the weirder ones to do a a slope for is 1, because 1 feels like it doesn't have a rise and a run. But remember, when you only have one number, you can always put it over 1, and then your rise is 1 and your run is 1. The other thing that's weird about 1 is if you flip it over, do you get it's still 1? It's the only number that, if you flip it over, is exactly the same. So we probably wouldn't give you that number for a slope being parallel or slope being perpendicular problem. So here's a slope that's fairly simple, 2/3. That's got a rise of 2 and a run of 3. What slope would you want for parallel? Don't say it, just write it. And what slope would you want for perpendicular? Caden, what slope would you want for parallel?
I don't know.
Just 2/3. You just want to match the slope. If your slope are the same, you'll be parallel. Two lines that have the same slope are like train tracks. They'll never touch. Perpendicular, Kieran, do you know how to do this one? Yes. That makes your lines cross at right angles if they are flipped and made opposite. So that's opposite reciprocal. All right. So my next type of question has the slope built into it somewhere. I bet 9 out of 10 kids know where the slope is on this one. But since I said that, I don't want to like burn some poor kid. So would somebody raise their hand and just tell me the slope? It's as easy as you think. Yes? 5 is the slope. Good. So that's your slope, your M. So what's the point then? Actually, it's not a cell phone. Touch it. A cell phone in your hand? Positive? What? Glad I didn't say anything. So it is something comma something. Write it down. In a second, I'm going to ask you to compare with that kid sitting next to you. It's kind of like an opposite thing again. I hope you know what I mean by that. The point is not 4, 3. Write down the point you think is in there, and then I'll compare in a minute. For today, these 2 rows, it's fairly simple, except there's one gap right there. Okay, so just compare with the kid next to you or diagonally from you. For here, it's a little bit weird. Today, you 2 are going to compare? You 2, and would you compare this? Compare what you think the point is. You just said you 3. You 2 compare?
What'd you get?
I'm wrong. I have to compare this guy over here. And then you 2 guys compare. It's so easy to forget one of the opposites. Like I saw one kid had 3, -4. And it's kind of close. Amina, what's wrong with that? It's supposed to be a -3. Notice the opposite number and in the opposite spot. And a +4. All right. Then, one more thing is actually graphing stuff. So if I gave you this equation, you should know where to start on the graph. And then I totally get you don't have graph paper. But just like draw a little arrow and say like I went down this and over this and then put it up. You'll have 2 dots. That makes a straight line. Just graphing. All you're doing right now is graphing. Graphing the thing that's on the board. All right, did you start at that, which was right there? Does that make sense so far? Good. Then, did you go down 2 and over 3, and you're about here? When you go down 2 and over 3. Cool. Because then everybody can draw a straight line through that. That's easy, but can you make the 2 points? That's what's critical. Okay, now if you feel like that was really easy, it's because it was. Those are the easy ones, and that's the kind of stuff that you have to know for the easy part. Tomorrow and the next day, we talk about all the difficult things that are on the test. All right, so for today, the only other thing we're doing is one of those basic 20 tests. So, I think most of these things by now, you guys are like, oh my gosh, this is so boring. It's because I want you to be so good at this that it just flows like naturally. And by now you should be getting to the point where you're like, this is annoying, I can do it in 6 minutes. Well, you probably should be able to do it in 6 minutes. I can do it in like 4 minutes. Okay, so it should be super easy and annoyingly easy. The thing is, your scores when we started this unit were all an average of an F on this, and now you guys are getting good at it. That's awesome. That's what we should do. All right, so I'm giving, this is actually on the iPad though, so keep the iPad out. I'm giving you this paper is just scratch paper. So I know some of you are not going to use it, that's okay. You can just turn it back in as scratch paper later. Some of you guys are going to use it because you'd rather use a pencil, and I'm okay with you using a pencil and the scratch paper, or just leaving it blank and turning it back in at the end. All right, actually, do me a huge favor and just send these out one to everybody. It won't be that hard, thank you. Now I gotta get the thing started. All right, I'm in Schoology. I am about to release the quiz. One thing that I wish they had on it was a timer. Not a timer where it shuts you off when you're, I'd love to know how many minutes did it take you? And I actually think I just realized that there is. I think it tells you how long the kid was taking it. So, bottom line is, if you're really good at this, make your challenge that you did it in like 8 minutes or whatever. Crank this sucker up. All right. So you should be in the October 7 folder. And under settings, I am enabling, and it should be ready in 5 seconds. Please refresh now. And let's see how your basics have improved. This is the part where you can be listening to music. This is kind of a relaxed working time. But this is not work with the kid behind you time. This has got to be your personal best on the basics. That's all I got for you for today.